Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today we're doing a deep dive on the playoffs that happened over the weekend. It's been 3 days since Bryce and I podcasted. So we're going to talk a lot about particularly the games that happened today, Milwaukee, Indiana, Clippers, Dallas, and Philadelphia, New York. Then we're going to go back in time. We're going to do a dive into Cleveland, Orlando particularly as well, because that's a 2-2 series and it's really fun and it's like a rock fight. But also Orlando has kind of figured some things out. So we're going to talk about all of the series in some respect, but we're going to focus probably more on those four than anything. But for then and now, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What's this going to be? Oh! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? Man, I had a busy weekend out here in the middle of nowhere, Kansas. As many people know, I live out here. Both my family and my wife's family are farmers, ranchers. So I spent a lot of the weekend outdoors doing some work on the farm and the ranch. And so I was able to catch as much of these games as I could. Not all of them, not every second. I rewatched some when I got home today, but it was a busy weekend outside at it was my wife's family's turn this weekend to help her father.
This is all amazing and so foreign to me, and I love it so much that you come on here after like doing your Yellowstone shit and then just talking about basketball. Okay, so let's talk about Milwaukee, Indiana. To start, I don't have like crazy thoughts on that series just because it feels like a bummer when I watch it. That game just ended, like an hour ago or so, maybe 40 minutes ago from when we've started this. And no Dame tonight, no Giannis tonight. I want to give some of the guys on the Bucks credit. Like Chris Middleton, it felt like, especially in the first half and, start of the fourth quarter, really was out there battling, scrapping. Brook Lopez, was fantastic, I thought, in this game and really did a great job picking up any scraps that he could offensively from the absence of Dame and Giannis. He stepped into that secondary role, did a great job. Malik Beasley, goes 8 for 12 and has 20 points. I thought Andre Jackson gave them great minutes tonight. Ends up with 7 assists. He has 6 points on 2 3-pointers. That's really the swing skill for Andre Jackson moving forward. Can he knock down those threes at a real level? But yeah, man, the Pacers win 126-113. They're up 3-1 in this series. They have consolidated home court, and it just feels really, really like Milwaukee is so outgunned and outmanned every time I watch them. And it's just it's so sad, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, just as a fan, right? And this is like, it's not like we wanted the Bucks to win or something like that. It's just like, as fans of basketball, fans of NBA, you want to see the best players on the floor to see the highest level of competition you can get. And we just haven't gotten that in this series. I saw people too, we haven't seen Benedict Mathurin for the Pacers either. That was a guy that would have been super exciting. Maybe not had the same impact, obviously, as a Giannis or a Dame, but a young player for the Pacers would have been exciting to see him and how he performed in the playoffs. It all should be. Bobby Porter's got ejected 7 minutes into this game, Sam. I mean, at one point it was Andre Jackson, AJ Green, Connaughton, Jay Crowder, and I believe it must have been Lopez, or else they wouldn't have had the size. Something like that was on the floor for the Bucks. And I was just like, man, like this is just, that's 3 of their top 6 players not playing for the Milwaukee Bucks once Portis gets ejected. So I'm glad you shouted out Middleton and Lopez, because I think sometimes that can get lost in losses, is those guys really tried to step up, and Malik Beasley as well. But I will say, shout out the Pacers. Like, at the end of the day, nobody should, like, I'm not going to discount them for winning a series. I don't like to play the injury game. Like, we could go through all of NBA playoff history, Sam, and be like, oh, well, the Warriors won because CP3 hurt his hamstring, or this team won because somebody rolled. I don't want to do that. So shout out the Pacers for doing what they need to do thus far to get the 3-1 series lead, and we'll see if they can finish it off.
Yeah, and I feel like the Portis ejection was like super funky. I don't think that probably should have happened. I feel like I confused like Halliburton drilling those 3 threes at the start of the third quarter, almost like with the end of the second quarter. He drilled those 3 threes to start the third quarter, and it felt like the lid kind of came off a little bit. And it was just going to be really, really tough for Milwaukee at that point, given the way that I thought Halliburton did a really good job early on, just kind of like finding little floaters and finding little spaces on the interior against that defense to be able to attack. Just a really, really professional set of performances by an Indiana team that goes down, loses game 1 as a younger team that we don't totally know what to expect. And I don't mean younger in terms of age with a lot of these guys, right? Like Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam, like they've played playoff games obviously before, but certainly a newer team in terms of continuity, in terms of having played a lot of minutes together. They acquire Siakam at the middle of the deadline. They send out, it's easy to forget this now because Buddy Hield has not been very good for the Philadelphia 76ers, but Buddy Hield was like a really essential, important part of their offense with the way that they would use him in ghost screen actions and the way they would run him off of things in order to space the floor for Halliburton. And I mean, I even saw a couple people after game 1 say, man, I really wonder if they should have moved Buddy Hield because of the way that their offense has, maybe struggled to open up space a little bit in the back half of the season and in game 1, but they figured it out here over the course of this little time. I've been really, really impressed with what I've seen from Indiana, and it just feels like this is now setting up for what seems to be a Pacers-Knicks matchup in all likelihood, given that both teams are up 3-1. And we'll talk about the Knicks here momentarily, but just a really, really professional performance from Indiana in every way. I think they deserve a lot of credit for it.
Well, and how about the game 3 victory as well in overtime,
Yep.
where Nembhard made some big shots. Halliburton obviously made the biggest shot. And again, like I realize we're trying to give the Pacers some love, but how about Chris Middleton in that game, Sam, where he hits a ridiculous shot to send it into overtime, and then he hits another one in overtime, and then Halliburton had I like the little design there they had, getting him the open floor downhill, all of that stuff. I thought that was real creative with Halliburton, and then obviously him ability to make that shot, but just they overcame some stuff. Like, it's not easy to be up 3 in the situation they were up 3, have someone hit the shot like Middleton did, and then come back into overtime and overcome it. And then Middleton hits another one. And again, you could see the emotion from, like you said, kind of the quote unquote, these younger guys. And you could see the emotion and how much it meant to them, and how you could really tell they felt themselves kind of growing and living up to the moment. So I'm interested to see, I wonder what will happen with Dame, with Giannis for game 5 and moving forward. I said from the start, Sam, I thought Indiana needed to close it out as quick as possible. Don't let this thing carry on where Giannis gets back for games 5, 6, and 7, or 6 and 7. I think they need to go shut it down in game 5, because you just never know when those guys might get back. And obviously the series changes if they get healthy and on the floor.
I think that's dead on. They really need to close this out as soon as possible. You can't play the game of, can Dame and Giannis come back? Because if that's real, that gets tricky for them in a hurry. So they got to finish this thing out here, I think, in 5. Look, it's not that they will lose the series if they don't finish it out in 5, but just don't play around. And, Halliburton, it was funny in that overtime in game 3. I mean, he missed like 3 or 4 shots. Like, he missed a few threes I can think of off the top of my head.
They were pretty open.
Yep, exactly. And he still felt the confidence to come in and drill that shot at the end. That was really, impressive. He gets fouled on it, obviously, too. Like, just an awesome. I am just very impressed with how collectively they seem very connected. And despite their lack of experience having played together for really only half a season at this point, you contrast that to Milwaukee, who obviously they fire their coach midseason, but the whole year we've been talking about, the Dame and Giannis pick and roll connection. We've been talking about, should they be playing Andre Jackson? Who's the best 5th guy to have on the court with their 4 stars? Can you play Brook Lopez later in games a lot of the time? It feels like the Bucks never figured out what they have right? They still are trying to figure out what they have. And in part now it's due to the injuries, obviously. But Indiana, it just feels like they know what they have and they know how to utilize what they have on the court really, really well, especially offensively, with Halliburton just kind of running the show. And I still don't think Halliburton has been nearly as good as he was in the first 2 months of the season, but it doesn't matter. He's just been able to orchestrate the show over the course of these last 3 games really, really effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. I got other music playing in my ears right now, Sam. I got to an ESPN page and there's all of a sudden an ad playing. I was like, oh man, can they hear that? My bad. No, I think Halliburton runs the show. And then you have Turner doing, like you said, tonight, he hit 7 threes, picking and popping. It's a team with a real identity, especially offensively. They know who they are. They know how they're going to get it done. He hasn't even been great at all. Like by any means, he hasn't been at his best or even close to it. But it's worked for them. They figured it out. Obviously, there's a little bit of help here because Giannis hasn't played. But I find myself, again, I have nobody like that I cheer for. I find myself being interested. I kind of want to see, like, if they go to the next round, does Halliburton find it? Can he figure it out? What does that look like against the potential opponent, especially if it's the Knicks? So, yeah, it's unfortunate that we haven't seen the best of what this series could have offered. But I am excited for this, again, quote unquote, young Pacers team.
They just had, the Knicks would have so many options to throw at Halliburton. I would be so interested just schematically in the way that series would go. But let's move to Dallas and the Clippers now. We're going to go in order of the way that these games played out today. Weird game today, game 4, obviously, where the Clippers go up like 31. I think it was 55-24 in the second quarter at one point. And then Dallas just like furiously comes back and fights back into this game. And I think it gets to like 100 even at one point, kind of midway through the fourth quarter. And this thing is like super tight at that point. I think it was even like tight by the time that we hit the 80s. If I'm like thinking of like scores in my head, obviously. And James Harden just comes through in the end. And what I kind of wanted to talk about first with the Clippers, and then we'll move to the Mavs, because I think there's just one like very clear overarching thing that's happening with the Mavs that I don't know what their solution will be necessarily. But with Harden, I think Harden has just been so unequivocally elite over the course of this series. And I tried to run through and figure out how many 4-game stretches in the playoffs has James Harden played like this? And there aren't many. So for people who haven't realized it yet, James Harden so far in this playoffs, in this 4-game stretch, he's averaging 26 points per game, shooting 54, 50, 90 with 7 assists and only 2.3 turnovers. He has made big shot, it feels like, in huge moments, time and again in this series, bizarrely, for what his 150 game sample of playoff basketball says. And I think he just deserves the most amount of credit so far for the Clippers, who are dealing with no Kawhi Leonard, who are playing really strong defensively. I think that deserves a lot of credit. Terrence Mann has come out and played really well. Ivica Zubac has come out and played really well defensively on the interior. Paul George is chasing guys around, obviously, and providing his offensive play on the other end. They've been great defensively, but more than anything to me, the Harden offensive burst is what's getting them over the hump and has this thing tied 2-2, despite the fact that they have no Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, I've been very impressed with Harden for pretty much most of the series. I felt like he's played really well. I feel like he's ran the show, like you talked about, got himself buckets, got teammates buckets, the prototypical step back, all of those things. I told you before we started recording, the end of this game was the ultimate, Luka and Kyrie are going to take this over, and this is going to be a historic comeback type of thing. And Kyrie was cooking. I think Kyrie's been really good for the most, not consistent every single game, but he's had a lot of really good play throughout the series, including in this one. And James Harden was just like, no, I'm not going to let that happen. and he just got bucket after bucket after bucket after bucket. I was so impressed. I know Paul George hit the corner three. Paul George had a really nice night. He needed a good game. He had 33 on 19 shots, 8 assists, 6 rebounds, 4 steals. I didn't feel like he had been great so far in the series, but man, Harden has been consistent. And like you said, huge buckets when they needed them, and especially tonight. I thought this was absolutely a Luka Kyrie special, and they were making some shots at the end, and Harden just kept going toe-to-toe with them and getting the buckets that were necessary.
Yeah, I think that is just such a good way to put it. And we're absolutely going to watch some James Harden clips now while we're talking, because he's just been so fun and so spectacular over the course of this series that, I kind of want to talk about just what they're doing in terms of finding him open looks. I think a lot of it is certainly on James just being able to, either find those cross matches in early transition or be able to get those early switches. So much of what we've seen from him is like tough contested shot making, but I think I've also just been very impressed with the patience that he utilizes on the court. He always does, but like, it just feels like he has been able to adjust backward into that third star role really well, and then adjust upward into the second star role really well when it's called upon. And that's not always super easy in terms of like the hierarchy for guys like this, right? Like it's hard to go back and forth sometimes.
Yeah, that's not an easy role to be in. Again, not to go over to the guy on the other side, but I've talked about this with Kyrie the last time we recorded, Sam, where Kyrie's so good playing off ball, but then he goes and plays on ball as the man when Luka's out and those type of things. This isn't easy. It's a mentality shift. And, I think a lot of people gave James Harden credit for going into LA and being that third guy and distributing the ball. And then now you get in the biggest moments of the season, Sam, whenever the team needs him the most in the playoffs, where people like to question him. And he's absolutely shown up in, 2 games without Kawhi. And again, Paul George struggling up until today's game.
Yeah, so I kind of went through and tried to see, what are James Harden's, best stretches of games, kind of, right? And maybe we'll pull this up first while we're doing this. I'll expand this so people can actually see, but it's hard to find a 4-game sample for Harden that is quite as good as this one, right? Certainly none of his time in Philly with 4 consecutive games as good as this one, right? The few that stood out when they won the series against Boston, I thought that these games were, among the best of his career, right? 2021 goes out over the final 4 games of that series and goes 30, 11, and 7 rebounds per game, only 2.8 turnovers, 59, 53, 90, right? Like that's probably a better stretch than what we've seen so far. I think that this Dallas team is drastically better than that Boston team was, but I do think that is a great stretch of basketball that we've seen from him. Obviously dropped 4 straight 30-point games in that series they won in the first round against Oklahoma City, but does so on 50, 34, 79, averages 3.8 turnovers, 8.8 assists, another really strong 4-game sample. In the Western Conference semis against Golden State in 2019, I think this might be my favorite, where he goes 36, 8 rebounds, 6 assists on 47, 37, 76. But to me, what we've seen from him so far, just in terms of playing his role and consistently being willing to, do what is asked of him, has been just so critical and important. This one, let's just kind of dive into the tape now. He's going to get Maxi Kleber cross-matched on him, obviously, in transition. Tough spot for somebody who can decelerate like James Harden. If you look at anybody that has done any sort of athletic testing on James Harden, it's like the level to which he decelerates is better than literally anybody else that has been tested that has played in the NBA. It's just crazy. This one, he's just going to come around the screen. He's going to get this switch onto Daniel Gafford, right? And now it's We're going for a 3 on Daniel Gafford. It's a tough contested 3, but he's just out here drilling these shots now. Powell gets the penetration. You get the extra pass here. Or no, it's not an extra pass. It ends up being just like a zoom action from Plumlee and Terrence Mann, right? So you get this drive, and then Mann's going to entry it here and then go and screen for Harden, who's going to come up around like that and be in the play and be able to get to an open look this way. He actually decides to step behind the dribble handoff there instead of going around. Just really sharp decision from somebody who's been playing in the NBA for well over a decade at this point. This one, I think he probably tells Mason go away because he likes the Luka matchup.
Yep.
Instead of trying to get the Gafford matchup, you can see here, Kyrie starts to creep up. He starts this possession here on Terrence Mann. He starts to creep up to try and help just in case Harden tries to get downhill going toward his right. You can see Luka obviously trying to point him toward his right with his stance. The whole goal here is to try and get Harden to go this way into the awaiting help. Harden goes that way, and then no help comes. Like, I just don't totally know what the point is of what Kyrie is doing here, if he's trying to creep, because he still doesn't really totally know that he has track of Terrence Mann here. There's just been like a lot of like weird, dumbfounding Dallas coverage decisions throughout the year that you and I have broken down at times.
Well,
and it's just bizarre.
I mean, Luka's got to do a little better job. Like there's a thing between influencing and giving. He's influencing, now he's giving. But isn't the whole point here for Kyrie to step over and make Terrence Mann make a corner 3?
I think that's what Dallas is trying to do. Yes. I think Dallas is hoping that Kyrie will come up. I think that then you'd probably shoot Luka out to the corner.
Yeah, just pill it if you want a late contest.
Right. And then you have hopefully PJ being able to help there because that's Russell Westbrook, and they're definitely comfortable with Russ shooting that wing 3 if he's the kick out option.
Well, this is like James is doing this with Terrence Mann, with all due respect, who I think has been really good. Russ, who again I think brings great, and Mason Plumlee on the floor. It's not like he's like has all of these floor spacers and a crazy floor to do it. Like, but this is some rough defense from the Mavs because you have Gafford protecting the rim too. Even if Mann cuts it. Doesn't make any sense.
Didn't really make any sense to me either. Again, has Luka on him. Luka actually, I think, does a pretty good job here, and he just like gets the step back, and it's absolutely disgusting, right? Like this is the kind of stuff that James Harden does, and it's just like, well, okay, I guess that there's not really much that can be done here. This one is interesting because they set this half court screen, right, where you're trying to
get the switch early, right?
Get the switch early with Luka, and James just decides to reject it, I think, because he sees all of this open court here that he thinks he can attack. And this is where Josh Green, being a little bit smaller than what you want for like a 3-and-D wing, right, pops up. Because Josh is what? Let's say 6'4", 6'5", something like that.
I was going to say 6'5", yeah.
Yeah. And he's not super strong yet. And James can just keep him on his hip. You know what I mean? There's just not a whole lot that Josh Green can do in that circumstance, because if James can just keep you on his hip, he's just going to feel totally comfortable and confident. He eventually just gets to the step back, and that's just like so in rhythm for Harden, right? It looks like it's a late contest, but for me, that's just like a shot that James will regularly hit. And now we're already into the fourth quarter, right? Like we're going to watch all of James's made shots. Most of his work came in the fourth quarter, and I think that's what's so impressive. This one, he just catches a late trailer, floater here. I believe that PJ is so it's somebody. It looks like Kyrie's complaining to the official, and here I'll kind of point that out. He's got his hands up, and he had like his head pointed backward. as he was coming up the court.
Oh, yeah.
So I think he was like kind of looking that way. And then instead of picking up Harden as the trailer, PJ Washington decides to go down here in the pickup into Norman Powell, because Powell's one pass away from a wide open corner three from Paul George. I think PJ probably makes the right decision there, to be honest.
This is Luka help. Like, I know that's strong side corner, but like make Russ make a corner three.
I think that's probably what I would prefer to see as well.
Like Kyrie should be telling Luka to help, and he should be sprinting to the corner. If you're the last one back in this situation, I think you tell Luka to come, you sprint to the corner.
I think that's right. You want like Maxey to step up here, yes, and Luka to go to Plumlee, but someone has to step up here. Nobody does. Again, like Dallas just has these weird defensive breakdowns. Like there have been moments where they're a really good defensive team, and there are moments where they just like really make mistakes on defense, and it's quite annoying. This one, again, James, you can actually literally see him wave. Who is that? Is that Paul George? Yeah. Waves Paul George away there, says, I have the Luka matchup. This is the one that I want. And now we're just going.
Real quick, Sam. Anybody watching right now, see at the bottom, it says Mavericks on a 12-1 run in the last 250. So this is the point of the game where I'm talking about, where I know they had made a comeback. I think I looked up when you said it. They had it like 78-76 late third. So, you know, like that comeback happened before this. But Mavs obviously on a run here behind, I think a lot of it was Kyrie, but Luka, Kyrie. And this is when James was really impressive to me.
Yeah, and he really took over in a big way. So this one here, that's just a nasty snatch. Like snatches that ball back. Like this is.
I want to see if he traveled. Sick. Luka wanted to travel really bad on this one.
I don't think so. I think that's just a step through at the end of the day. That's just like sick footwork from Harden here.
Gather 1-2. Yeah.
I think he gathered 1-2. I think that's right. It's the kind of similar to the Anthony Edwards one from a couple weeks or from last week against Phoenix, where he did the up and under and then like kind of went through the play and people thought it was a travel, but it's not. It's just a gather 1-2.
Rudy, however, traveled on that transition layup the other night.
I will agree with that. Again, you've got Doncic picked him up. This time, Paul George goes for like a little ghost screen to see if there's any confusion, and they try to get two on the ball there, right? And again, it's just Luka, and I mean,
that one was really bad. Like I gave Luka a lot of props last episode. This one was pretty bad.
This is hard. I would like to know a little bit more about their defensive strategy. It's too easy from Luka. Like we don't want to take Luka off the hook here at all. Absolutely, unequivocally, Luka needs to be stronger at the point of attack here.
Why doesn't Maxey come sooner though?
That's what I would like to know as well. Why is Maxey not stepping up here?
PJ's already tagging hit. Like PJ's already committed to Zoo. Like
make them shoot that ball out to the corner and Terrence Mann. Like that seems smart to me. But it's just too easy at the end of the day, right? Like that's just way too simple. This one, they get the switch from Mann out on to Maxi Kleber, who has to guard Harden now. And then you just see him go slow to fast against Maxi Kleber, right? This was not the best Maxi game. We talked a lot last episode about how their lineups with Maxi and PJ had been really, really good in the first two games. Tonight, I think Maxi was like a -27 net rating in this game. Was not quite as effective when he was on the court. I felt like their run came, if I remember correctly, with like one of Gafford or Lively for the most part. They started to come back in the late second and then really kind of pushed it back in the third with a true center out there. And now finally they've got PJ Washington onto Harden, right? And again, slow to fast. That's what James Harden has been the absolute king of throughout his career. He's going to go slow to fast, and he's going to be able to hesitate, and he's going to be able to take you on this quick little plant step right there. Right when he hesitates like this, and you have PJ Washington just planted directly into the ground. And then he can get that acceleration going after the decel faster than just about anybody you'll find that's ever played basketball, point blank. And even still, at his age today, he's still got that in his bag and he's able to get there. Again, PJ Washington, they're going to try and get the switch to Luka. I think Harden's just kind of feeling it at this point so much that he does not care who is guarding him. This is under a minute left. They're only up 3. Again, they try to get the switch. Harden's kind of trying to go deliberately here.
Why is Maxey playing both?
Yeah, I'm not totally sure why Maxey is trying to play both there. Let's see if we can get this back and see what Maxey is going to do here. I mean, I would argue, I would argue Maxey's just like not doing anything and is like totally in no man's land here.
Because they could, I mean, Luka's tagging is, I also, Harden, the two before this, Harden, for anybody not watching live or didn't notice, was both drives to his right hand, Sam. Now he finished with his left, but he was driving with his right. But it plays off perfectly those step backs you showed earlier in the breakdown, because when he stops like that, you have to respect it because he can go to that quick step back, especially going to his right. So those two things play off each other really well.
Well, and just from a principles perspective here, right? It feels like to me a big part of what Dallas is trying to do is kind of dissuade the middle of the court.
Yeah,
right? So you're going to see here that PJ is going to fight through and then he's going to stay attached here, shading his body directly toward the baseline. And then Luka is attached here, obviously. He's trying to make sure that he can't get to the baseline here. Maybe they are trying. I don't totally know what their principle is here, I guess, is where I'm at. Like, it looks like they're trying to stop middle, but then it also looks like Luka is trying to stop like kind of like sideline and like baseline side too, with the 2 on the ball there. And then you're right. This is other than PJ getting beat off the bounce and the point of attack defense not being good enough, this is the one. Like, Maxey has absolutely got to be able to step up here, and Luka has to be able to tag. Like, it's got to be a Luka tag situation if you're going to have PJ just getting beaten off the bounce. You got to have Luka tagging onto Zubats here. Yeah, I mean, look, Dallas's defense throughout the course of the year has had these weird breakdowns, and it's been incredibly frustrating and annoying. This is nothing new for them, unfortunately. It's not always. Like, they have games where they play really, really well on defense. I thought game 2, they played really, really well on defense. The other thing I do want to point out, though, is people will probably come at Luka in some respect because of the way he got cooked on switches in this game. Some of the point of attack effort stuff, if you really want to look at it, like, probably not great, right? We can just be honest about that. Do you know what the score is in the 18 minutes and 51 seconds that Luka Doncic has sat in this series?
Well, I don't, but I saw that. Did you tweet out in this game how much they got beat in the 4 minutes he didn't play or something like that?
In the, I believe it was 3 minutes and like 50 seconds, maybe. Let me see if I have the exact number. No, it's 3:19, I believe it was. In the 3 minutes plus that Luka did not play tonight, the Mavericks got outscored 15-0. He was a +10 in a game that they lost by 5. There was an 8-0 run in the 2:15 that Luka sat in the first quarter. There was a 4-0 run in the third quarter when he was out for 53 seconds. And then, like, later on, it was, late subs for fouling reasons, right? In game 1, they lost 23-8 in the 5:37 that Luka sat, which means in their 2 losses in this series, in Dallas's 2 losses,
38-8,
the Mavericks are losing 38-8 in what I believe is like a 9.5 minute stretch. That's like basically losing a quarter of basketball 38-8.
That's a problem.
It doesn't happen often in the NBA. How many quarters did the Detroit Pistons lose this year? 38-8, Bryce. Very few.
Maybe one, and that's a really bad basketball team.
In total, in the 18 minutes and 51 seconds that Luka Doncic has not played in this series of non-garbage time, right? He sat at the end of the game 3 because things got a little bit out of hand. They were up like 16 or whatever with 3 minutes left. In the non-garbage time, 18 minutes and 51 seconds that Luka has sat in this series, Dallas is losing 54-22. They are down 32 points in 18 minutes and 51 seconds when Luka has sat in the series so far. That is a bonkers number. And that's why I can't really, I get like that people want to put some of this on Luka. I get it that people want to be like, oh man, you know, he's just not been good enough defensively, et cetera, et cetera. The problem is not when Luka is on the court for Dallas.
Well, my short answer to that, or maybe it's a question, is the guy I've been giving a lot of credit to the Mavericks, Kyrie Irving. Aren't those supposed to be his minutes to keep things afloat? And again, I've given him a lot of credit, and he had 31 in game 1, 23, 21. Tonight he had 40, on 25 shots. But at the end of the day, it's probably a lot of similar other guys whenever, Luka's on without Kyrie, even when they're on together, it seems like maybe Kyrie's not carrying those minutes the way they need him to.
I feel like that's correct. I would love to know kind of what they're telling those guys. Like, it doesn't feel like they play quite as like heliocentric to me when Kyrie is in there, like using Kyrie as like the single guy, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you just have to say like, Kyrie, you got to go cook on some level, right?
That would be really interesting, and something I think next game I'll watch for a little more. When Luka goes out, is that when PJ says, "Oh, it's my turn," or Derek says it's my turn, or
in game 4, early, like in the first quarter minutes where Luka sat, it felt like a lot of Exum to me, which was interesting. So maybe you just got to go like heliocentric, say, hey, Kyrie, we need you to go. Like, we need you to like hold up the offense here, do everything you can. And Kyrie's not the passer, Luka is. Like, there are a number of things that probably don't work as well if you do it, but what you got right now is not working as well. And you got to find answers on offense, because you've scored 22 points in 19 minutes of basketball so far when Luka has been out of this game in non-garbage time minutes. So that's where I'm at on Dallas and LA. And if you're an LA fan, like, I totally get it. If you're just like, this might be a sweep if Kawhi was playing right now, or it might be a 5-game series if Kawhi was playing right now. I completely get that. And I think you're right. Like, I think that Kawhi has been unbelievable. Or the Clippers without Kawhi, I'm sorry, have been unbelievable so far in this series. Like I said, we gave love to some of the defenders at the top. I think Russ is, outside of his game 3 moment, like provided generally positive energy out on the court. Like we said, Zubats has been really good. I think like Mason Plumlee has given them minutes even so far. That was a question I had, like, how would they survive those minutes with Mason Plumlee on the court with guys who can consistently attack? And he's just going out there, and part of it's that he's willing to play physically and foul. Terrence Mann deserves a ton of credit, obviously, for the defensive effort that he's putting in. Again, like, I think Paul George probably consistently gets underrated defensively just for how capable he is of chasing guys over the top of dribble handoffs and screening actions and things. But I truly don't know where this series is going to go now. It's been so funky. It's been such a series of runs. It feels like, there's like a 20-0 run almost in every game in this series, bizarrely. So I don't know. I have truly no idea where this thing goes.
Yeah, I think I hate to be like negative here. I'm kind of assuming we don't see Kawhi again. I hope I'm wrong. It makes me nervous again, like when these guys are playing through this stuff, like inflammation, and it's almost like a day-to-day, game-to-game thing. Like, I just don't want him to do something that's more long-term. If we don't see Kawhi again, I'm giving the Mavs the edge still. If we do see Kawhi, I just don't know if he's going to be anything close to the Kawhi we know he can be that we saw a lot of the regular season. So I don't even know if I probably give the edge to the Clippers, because of that, but I'm just not sure we see him again. So
yeah, I'm not totally sure either, to be honest with you. It's just always such a mystery with his injury situations. So, okay. Do you want to go to the early game today, Philly and New York?
That was a good one.
They're always good ones. Every game in this series has been just like awesome every time for some reason or another.
I'll be completely honest. I wanted the Sixers to win, not because I care about whether the Sixers win or not. I want 7 games of this series so bad, Sam. I want 7. It's so intense. It's so like you said, there's always something. I heard I think it was Bontemps said the other day on their pod, Joel Embiid is like the most interesting person in the NBA because of the things he says, the things he does. I mean, the dude's playing with Bell's palsy right now. Like, his one eye doesn't even work. Like, I've never had it. I don't know like how it affects you, but it can't feel good. But like, there's always, like you said, there's always something in this series. Flagrant fouls, technicals, game-winning, like Jalen Brunson going nuclear. It's amazing. I love it so much. More Knicks fans than Philly fans in Philly. Like, what's going on there? So,
I mean, like, that makes sense to me because New York is so close, and like those tickets have to just be like out of control at Madison Square Garden right now.
True.
With the Knicks being a 2 seed, and like there's so much positive energy toward this Knicks team right now. But so the Knicks win this game 97-92 today. They're up 3-1 in this series. It's felt like, to me, really, like all 3 of the Knicks wins could have gone a different way, right? In some respect, if things had gone just like slightly differently in some way or another. I would be remiss if I did not talk about game 3, where we got a holy shit Joel Embiid moment to start the game, where in the first quarter, he like literally tries to trip Mitchell Robinson and does like a incredible like bullshit moment that I think deserves a lot of criticism. And then he goes out and drops 50 and is like completely unstoppable and dominant and drills those threes in the second half and still looks like the perimeter based player that, we didn't see in the first half of the first game, but he is now stuck to being offensively because of his knee injury. I thought he probably should have been ejected, if I'm being honest, from game 3, but then he comes out and drops 50 and they win in front of Philadelphia. And then, game 4, you've got Don Staley in the crowd. You've got all of this excitement.
Allen Iverson, the answer, my guy, that's who I looked up to. That's who I fell in love watching the game of basketball, was Allen Iverson.
A man in Kansas doing ranch work while also loving Allen Iverson. Man, if basketball doesn't bring us all together.
And plays and whose game mirrors Allen Iverson's in the least possible way whatsoever. But I loved watching that dude play.
Unbelievable. But yeah, then Joel goes out and drops 50, and it was just absurd. Completely ridiculous basketball game. And then game 4, it feels like, to me, this thing is set for like fireworks and like all sorts of physical play. And it was physical and it was a grind. And it felt like the refs did like a pretty good job of like keeping it under control and like letting them play physically, but not letting it flare over the top a little bit. I thought it was really positive to watch this game. And I had like a great experience seeing the way that this thing played out. And then we get to the fourth quarter and it feels like Philadelphia might be able to like get control of this thing, especially in the third quarter. You see Isaiah Hartenstein go out with 5 fouls, right?
All in the third quarter.
Basically all in the third quarter, it felt like. He goes out at the 1:30 mark with 5 fouls. And then right before that moment, it goes like Knicks, Dante DiVincenzo 3, terrible, like 28-foot three from campaign that never should have been taken. Dante gets another transition three to get it down to one. And then Joel drills a three. And then, Jalen Brunson drills a three. You've got Hartenstein picking up that foul, and Don Staley's literally like waving him off the court. And then Jalen Brunson continues to take over. And I thought the guy that was most important in this game was OG Anunoby, just point blank. OG Anunoby's ability to cross match onto Embiid and allow them to go small. They closed and like played significant portions of the fourth quarter with Precious Achiuwa and OG is their front court. I mean, tell Raptors fans that right now, right? Like that's crazy. And man, I loved this basketball game. It's everything to me that basketball was supposed to be in this playoffs, with just how tightly contested it was, how physical it was, the chess matches, the matchups, the elite level play from Jalen Brunson. You have these two other guys trying to fight back in Tyrese Maxey and Joel on the other end. I thought Kelly Oubre played well in this game as well. Dante obviously played well. It just felt like outside of Tobias Harris, like everybody played pretty well in this game. I think Dante's second one might have been ruled a 2. I'm looking, he only had 5 points, but like Dante, man, like he fought around defensively, it felt like to me. And the Knicks bench unit I thought was like pretty good defensively in this game too, like across the board in this game. Like it was just a crazy, crazy game.
Deuce hit 3 more threes. Like Deuce McBride is a knockdown, can't leave 3-point shooter. It's been awesome. Real quick, I thought the Joel Embiid play on Mitch Robinson in game 3 was awful. Like I love watching Embiid. He had an insane season. I'm glad he's back. As somebody who's played the game, nothing pissed me off more than when somebody did something when I was in the air. If you want to contest me at the rim, that's fine. I get it. If you touch me from behind, if you get into my legs, whatever, nothing pissed me off more. And whenever Embiid did, and the other thing was the context, it was completely out of frustration, Sam. He was just pissed off. Yeah. Like he was just mad and was throwing a fit. And so I don't normally call that stuff out, but that one did kind of bother me. And I think if it wasn't a playoff game, he would have got ejected. On to game 4. Jalen Brunson was awesome. Yeah. I've really liked watching Brunson in this series because I think he struggled a little bit early on with the length. Not that Oubre is like an incredible defensive player and, Batum does a really nice job, but there's length there. And I think he's adjusted just a little bit how he attacks those guys. I think he does a better job creating separation from those two because they can't stay with them. And then he does a little bit more of his 2 feet, bully ball, those type of things when he gets Maxey on him or Lowry or, Campaign or somebody like that. And I think he's really figured that out. The other thing, you text me, said, hey, we're going to talk about OG Anunoby. And I kind of missed it when I was watching live because I was with my in-laws and eating and stuff like that. So I was watching the game, but I wasn't locked in. So I knew that OG had come in. I knew that he was the one guarding Embiid, but I wasn't watching all of it as in depth. So I downloaded the game and watched again. He does a great job just kind of denying Embiid the ball on a lot of these possessions and just not letting him get touches, making him really work for it. Now Embiid he got rolled up on by, I think it was Brunson, after he had blocked Brunson. And so he was, I'm nervous Embiid's going to run out of energy, Sam. He played a lot of minutes in this game.
I think he did. To be honest with you, I think, and I'll explain why. We're going to kind of dive into tape now here.
Yeah.
So this is the first possession. I'm so glad you teed that up perfectly because this is, I think, the Knicks' first possession post Hartenstein getting that 5th foul. And Brunson gets the corner on Embiid and then he just trips, right? And you see him go down with the knee and it looks bad and it looks, like he might not get up again, but he does. And you can see he stays in the game, right? And now he's like cross-matched onto Brunson. And, you're going to see here, I think Brunson is going to miss a shot. And then Josh Hart gets a rebound. Josh Hart gets another rebound, right? Like it's just constant. It's this barrage that you have to deal with. And then Brunson later in that possession gets the and one on. It's just such a big play. It's such a huge set of circumstances in this series that they're able to like kind of get these offensive rebounds time and time again. We talked about it after game one, right? Offensive rebounding has been so critical. Again, 15-9 in the offensive rebounding department in this game for the Knicks.
Sam, real quick side note, what did you think about Nick Nurse's decision to go with DeAnthony Melton, who has were you okay with him trying him out? I know he didn't play a ton of minutes. He only played 7. So you're because Buddy's struggling so much.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't think Melton looked good, but maybe long term, and there may not be much long term. I almost just would have shrunk the rotation even more, I guess. It just didn't seem like he was ready, and it feels like a tough spot to put Melton in coming off the injury. That was the only reason I was curious.
You got to give it a try. Okay. I think at the end of the day, because like Campaign played 14 minutes in this game.
That's
right?
Fair.
Joel Embiid played 44, and we're about to get to where that problem came, right?
Yeah.
Notice how Joel Embiid did not sit to start the fourth quarter here.
Yep.
He played through. Typically, the rotation is that he will sit at the start of the fourth quarter and then come in and be fresh for the close. It felt like to me, and I don't know that this is true necessarily, like I'd have to talk to Nick Nurse and everything, but it felt like to me that the Sixers and Nick Nurse wanted to try and get this lead up a little bit against the Knicks and maybe like try and sit Joel if they get up like 7 or 8. And then, try and like let them fight back and have to counter punch, right? They didn't really get that. And I think it tired out Joel by the end of it. And the other thing that tired out Joel by the end of it was OG Anunoby. So look at OG just like fighting to front here, just fighting and scratching and clawing. And eventually Joel's going to get this ball, right? But look at how far away he is from the rim. He throws this awesome pass, incredible block by Josh Hart, obviously. But like, it's the fighting, right? Like OG Anunoby does such incredible work here to stay in front of Joel. Joel is 290 pounds. When Joel throws this like first initial like fend off, most guys move, especially most wings, right? Most wings move here, right? And OG just does not at all. He continues to fight and scratch and claw. Then he tries to back him up a little bit to get position. He's still 19 feet from the rim here. It's just such a credit to Anunoby, and then obviously the ridiculous help block from Josh Hart. But Anunoby deserves just so much credit for everything that he did in this game. Look at him here again. He gets like kind of shrugged off, but look at how far Joel is catching the ball from the rim. That's the key to me.
You said it at the start though. It's all energy and effort. So at the end of the day, Embiid plays 44 minutes, and now here into the fourth quarter, he's not just walking down to 15 feet, stopping, asking for the ball, catching it, squaring up. He's having to throw his arm. He's OG's leaning on him. All of these, he's having to make a read at the end of the play. All of that stuff adds up, and it wears on you, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. You get annoyed with it. You get tired of it. And OG did a great job of just laying it on and laying it on and laying it on.
Yep. I mean, that foot there, his right foot is 20 feet from the rim right now. And look, at the end of the day, like, I believe that this is one where Joel scores. No, it's short. That's right. So it's a tough mid-range shot. The point there was that like, this is a tough mid-range shot, regardless of if he scores or not.
Yeah.
Right. Like, this is a difficult shot, and it's because of what OG did here. Eventually they started bringing like late doubles, right? Like,
yeah,
Deuce McBride comes with this late double to try and like annoy Joel, just like kind of get under him a little bit. And again, misses it short. Tobias Harris kind of gets in there, maybe gets the offensive rebound, but no, knocks it out of bounds. This one, just incredible from Joel, but Josh Hart's there again, offensive rebound every time. Then you've got OG Anunoby driving, the little dump off, another contest, and then Anunoby just like finishes over the top of Joel. Anunoby was so unbelievable. in this game. I thought he was outstanding on both ends of the court. I think he had like 18 and 16. I'll look that up while we're talking here.
16 and 14 and 3 blocks,
Yeah.
1 turnover.
16 and 14. I mean, goodness for OG, right? Like unbelievable. Again, offensive rebound from Anunoby in the fourth quarter, just absolutely killing them on the offensive glass and giving up extra possessions. It is just such a difference maker. I feel like every time. This one, now you get Josh Hart driving. I think he misses this, but gets fouled. Like next one, just watch Anunoby again. You've got this like weird action, and now he's trying to get back in front, getting in front, fronting him again, making it so that entry pass is impossible with OG's length. Look at that positioning. Well, everything they want to do is get the ball to Joel, and OG is just here completely walling off that entry pass, right? And then look at the backside here with Precious, right? You might think, oh, wait, like maybe Joel can seal him up here and then just have the entry pass here, but you can't because Precious is right there waiting.
And I think in my opinion, where Joel is most comfortable is right there on the elbow. And what we've seen in every one of these clips, even look where he catches now. He's down on the baseline. He's been more on the wing. I think I have it in my notes from the regular season. Joel Embiid catching the ball at the elbow, the high post right there, the free throw line is like one of the scariest places for a player in the NBA to catch the ball. And it may the distance is the same on the wing or no, it's different. Guys get comfortable with spots of the floor, and OG has not once yet let Joel catch it where I believe he's most comfortable, which is in the middle of the floor. It's also harder to double in the middle of the floor, all of those things. So he's been really, really good. Another miss short.
Yep, another miss short, and it comes on this like late double here as well from Deuce. Deuce comes in, just makes it uncomfortable for him, right? And Joel, I think, has improved marginally as a passer, but he's never been a guy that is going to make super high level passing reads out of these doubles. And on top of it, like there's nowhere to bring, like even if he wanted to pass here,
look at the shot. Look at the shot clock.
Yeah, there's nowhere to go. Like, cause Kelly Oubre and Tobias Harris are
bad spacing.
Like, I don't know what that is. You can't throw it here because that probably gets picked off by Jalen Brunson. You can't throw it behind because Josh Hart's here. It's just such smothering defense, and it starts with OG forcing that early bad catch, but it's smothering across the board. I mean, the Knicks have just been incredible late in these games, I think. And again, here, you're going to try and run a screening action to get Joel away from Anunoby. And again, look at where he forces the catch, right foot at the 3-point line. Doesn't quite get the front because Joel kind of shoves him off. Then you get this double, and then you're scrambling, right? Yeah. Precious does a great job staying in front of Maxey here.
It's a really
short.
Good possession.
It's exactly what you want to do defensively. It's literally exactly the way that you would teach how to defend Joel Embiid in these circumstances.
I feel very confident right here. They're trying to bring Joel off right to the elbow and catch the ball. And this isn't something that most big men are good at doing, right? Like, as much as I like Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson, defending a pin down to the elbow isn't something like those guys are just going to go underneath, right? Like, they're not comfortable fighting over the top, jumping up, getting between their man and the screener. And OG, not only does he not let Joel do it, but they give up on the screen. And again, he does not get the ball in the middle of the floor like what they want to. Because again, what happens? They come double right away. If he catches at the elbow, that's a little bit tougher to double somebody in the middle of the floor.
Look at that arm. That arm there is OG's arm having already gotten over the top of this screen. His foot is in the right position. Look at his left foot there. His left foot is easily going to be able to get around that once he has to take that step to get around the screen if Joel takes it. It's just exactly the way you would go about it. It's just such perfect defensive play across the board. Double help, force the mid-range.
That's really good from Precious.
Really good from Precious. Precious is a good switch defender. Always has been.
I have many games this year where I'm like, you know what? Precious is getting his opportunity and he's doing everything he can to take advantage of him. I'm not saying he's a perfect player. I'm not saying he's, whatever. I watch quite a few Knicks games where I'm like, hey, good for Precious for taking advantage of his opportunity.
Yep. And then this is a switch, I believe, from Anunoby and just like totally cuts off Maxey.
A really fast Tyrese Maxey.
Like that is just completely ridiculous. Yeah, this was just like a great defensive game from OG Anunoby. I was so impressed. And look, now the Knicks get to go home and they have 2 games on their home court to close this thing out. I think we're in a spot where, we should expect that the Knicks probably close this out, given where Joel is, given that they're up 3-1. It's just a really tough spot for the Sixers, and it will start a real summer of questions for the Sixers that we'll probably get to at a later date.
I have some thoughts on the Sixers and people's expectations of, but I want to save it for that. I don't think this is the time for that. I want to know, when does Tibbs pull this back out? I don't think you start the game with OG, but do we see OG 6 minutes to go in the fourth? Joel takes his break when he comes back in the fourth. In high leverage situations, do we see more OG on Embiid in those situations, or can they not do it with Hartenstein and Mitch Rob because they're not as switchable defenders as Precious, and the other matchups don't make as much sense? I will be interested to see if Tibbs goes back to this well with OG on Embiid in certain situations, whether it's 1 more game or 3 more games.
I will be too. Okay. Let's go now to Cleveland, Orlando, because that's a series we have not talked enough about.
Fair.
In general, we talked about game 1 quite a bit. Then game 2 was kind of a blowout. Game 3 occurred after we podcasted our 3 times last week. And then game 4 occurred yesterday. Both blowouts really in favor of Orlando.
Yep. And
I'm so fascinated to hear your thoughts. I have my own on what's going on. I'll just let you start. What have been your thoughts on Orlando tying this series at 2-2?
I mean, it's been super impressive from a young team. As I was watching that game today from yesterday, I just found myself going, these 2 young teams that I didn't know how much faith I had in coming into the playoffs, the Magic and the Thunder, are both performing really well, right? Like the Thunder are just blitzing everything in that series. And the Magic, after going down 2-0, 1 lost by 14, 1 lost by 10, have just beat the brakes off the Cavs in 2 games at home. And it's been really impressive. Game 3 was Paolo Banchero. Game 4 was Franz, was incredible. Paolo wasn't even great in this game on Saturday. Just 9 points. Jalen Suggs only had 12. They were down early. Like, I turned this game on. Obviously, I knew the result, and they're just throwing the ball all over the place, Sam. Like they
were down 8 at halftime.
They have 17 turnovers for the game, but they were just chucking it everywhere. And it's like, okay, they look a little rattled, a little skittish. Like, what happens here that they turn this? The Cavs are just crushing them in the paint, and it just completely flipped. And again, you can see the kind of this intensity. Mo Wagner brings a certain intensity. Jalen Suggs and Darius Garland had an interaction at halftime or at half court that I absolutely love. It was incredible. Franz is so much fun when he gets into the lane, plays off 2 feet, his little Euro step. He can go both directions, can finish with both hands. That I was just impressed with their response. You know who else I want to give credit to? Jamal Mosley. Because Jamal Mosley went to Jonathan Isaac the last game of the year, second to last or something, as a starter, kept it into the playoffs. And then Jamal Mosley looked himself in the mirror and said, you know what? Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe Jonathan Isaac is better coming off the bench for whatever reason. Maybe Wendell Carter Jr. is better, whatever it is, whatever the chemistry of that is. I won't pretend like I know specifically why. But he wasn't too proud to say, I screwed this up. We're down 0-2. Maybe I should go back. And it's worked. Jonathan Isaac was really good in this game as well, knocking down some threes. So I've been really impressed with not just Jamal Mosley, but also just these Magic young players and their response to being down 2-0 or 0-2.
I totally agree. There are 2 things, we're going to talk about Orlando on offense and we're going to talk about them on defense. I think that the tape is going to be on offense. Like I want to talk about some of the adjustments they've made offensively that I think have worked to be able to get Cleveland into more difficult positions defensively. But everything with Orlando in this series starts on defense, right? So far in this series, the Cavaliers have scored 97, 96, 83, and 89 points. They have not cracked 100 yet in this series. In the first two games, the reason Orlando lost, we talked about that quite a bit, was that the guards have just really struggled offensively up until games 3 and game 4, right? With Orlando, the defense has always been there. They have made life really hard, I think, for Donovan Mitchell. They've made Donovan Mitchell like a jump shooter almost entirely in this series. Their length, I think, has really bothered Darius Garland over the course of this series. Their length in general defensively, it feels like has bothered any sort of penetration that those Cavs guards can get in help as well. And because they play two non-shooters out there in Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, and, we got excited after Evan Mobley drilled a couple of threes in the first game and played really well, but, still they're going to play to their scouting report and treat Evan by and large as a guy that you get a late closeout on as opposed to being like a real shooter. They've just been so smothering, it feels like to me, defensively, in the way that it just feels like the Cavs rarely get to the rim with their guards. If they're getting to the rim, it's like a little lob to Jarrett Allen, or it's offensive rebounding leading to something, or it's a dump off pass. I just feel like rarely has like Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland gotten all the way to the rim. They're like often having to stop in that 12 to like 16 foot extended area, and it's bogging down their offense and not allowing them to like spray balls out to shooters or find those open areas in a real consistent way. And that's what, we thought the worry could be with the Cavs in this series, right? Is they are so long, they're so big, they start Jalen Suggs, who's, going to make all defense this year. And they start Franz Wagner and Paulo and, one of Wendell Carter, Jonathan Isaac, who are all really, really good defenders. And then, or at least Paulo is, an effortful defender, even if he's still a guy that can struggle with switches against guards from time to time. The guy we didn't talk a lot about, and I talked about him negatively after game 1 because he did not play well at all. Gary Harris has been enormous these last 2 games defensively. He has been so big chasing around their guards. He's done an amazing job for Orlando, being able to make those guards' lives just a little bit harder every single time he's on the court.
I'm looking up Darius Garland's numbers, and Darius Garland is only averaging 12 points per game in this series, shooting 41% from 3, Sam. Darius Garland is shooting 41% from 3, but he's not getting off nearly as many overall attempts. Let's see, he got to the line 3.1 times in the regular season, 1.3 free throw attempts in the playoffs. Darius Garland's got to the free throw line 5 times in 4 games of this series. Donovan Mitchell just 18 times. Like they have done an incredible job. And you're right. It's Suggs, it's Harris. I thought Markelle Fultz played really well in this particular game. He came in and got some buckets as well. And then, the big guys as well that we've talked about. So they're tough defensively. And then if they can find, if Paulo or Franz can have a night and they can make some threes, they were 12 of 26 in this one. Isaac made 4. Wendell Carter Jr. made a couple. Suggs made a couple. They're really, really tough.
Yeah. So a lot of people have kind of talked about why has Evan Mobley not made the leap? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's been a discussion point. And to me, like Darius Garland kind of regressing has been like probably more important at this point. If you're the Cavs, you thought Darius Garland was an all-star point guard. You paid him like an all-star point guard. He hasn't played like an all-star at all this year. Just kind of point blank as they've moved more toward Donovan. which is fine. Like Donovan Mitchell's a better player, but like when you also throw in that Garland is like a liability on defense, and he is like he's just small out there, right? It's really difficult for him to manage things. I'm not saying he's a bad player. He's definitely not a bad player, but like to me, it is just as important for the future of the Orlando Magic or the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm sorry, that Darius Garland has not taken that next step, in my opinion, in that, Evan Mobley is a better player than Darius Garland, if I'm being completely honest. I know Darius has made the All-Star game and everything, and people get really excited, but Mobley, I think, has played better in this series, and I think he's just like a better overall player that I trust a little bit more to play winning basketball.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at the regular season, I know Darius was an all-star 2 years ago, but then that next year he came back with very similar numbers, better from the three-point line, better from more free throw attempts if you're looking at per 36. And then he took a step back this year, like plain and simple. The numbers, the three-point percentage is down a little bit. The free throw attempts drastically went down. The assists went down again. And obviously the points per 36 points per game, even if you just look at per game. So, and then that has carried over into this series, Sam. You were built on this dynamic backcourt duo, and then this front court of, two big, spacing stuff with otherwise control the boards, defend, like all of this stuff. Well, one of those guys is only averaging 12 points a game through 4. And that's just not going to be enough. The other guy that hasn't been great for them, and he's not in the same, Max Strus hasn't like really got off in this series either. So I think I want to give the credit to this Magic defense because we saw how good it was all year. And I'm interested now to see, does it travel back to Cleveland, right? Like we saw Cleveland kind of dominate the series in Cleveland. Orlando absolutely dominate this, the 2 games in Orlando. Was that the Magic figuring something out? I know we'll dive into some of the offensive film, or is this something that was a little more like, hey, young players and role players tend to play better at home, or did they really unlock something here?
So I think 2 points on that I want to bring up. Offensively, I think Orlando has figured some things out. I think there are like the Cavs are still playing defense and they're still getting contests and still playing reasonably well at times. But I think 2 factors for Orlando, for instance, like the Cavs played well, I thought, defensively in the first half of game 4, right? But I think Orlando has done 2 things, especially in game 3. They did a great job of pushing the tempo, and we'll talk about that when we go through these clips. They're trying to get earlier offense. They're trying to get cross matches. They're trying to find earlier ways to get shots. The second thing that they've done really, really well, I think they've been more intentional about getting mismatches and cross matches onto the guards, particularly. And that has made life a bit more difficult for Cleveland as they go. And oh, by the way, there have been moments where they have attacked Evan Mobley with like Jalen Suggs or some of these guards, right? And that is intriguing to me, that they're thinking that part of what makes Evan such a great defender is that he is this unbelievable help defender who's everything, everywhere, all at once. But you might be able to get him on the ball because he has like a higher center of gravity, and you might be able to get him. So we'll kind of watch through this as we dive into these clips, right? So this is just a great example of them pushing, right? So Jalen Suggs this year has done an amazing job of just trying to create early offense for Orlando. This is one where Wagner misses this early 3 and then just early kick out to Suggs. I want to call out here that, this is just pitiful defense to me from Cleveland. It just feels like they kind of stopped defending on some level. Look at like Donovan Mitchell here. Like it just feels like that's like a half-hearted closeout, right? But pushing, trying to get cross matches in transition, trying to create early offense, right? Again, you're going to see it. It's a good rebound there. Get it out to Wagner, and Wagner's just going to push. He's going to force this immediate help here from Evan Mobley. And it's just going to create this wide open three in transition from Paulo. Again, trying to get early offense. Don't let this team that has 2 7-footers get set, right? Next, going to get a turnover here. Push to Paulo. Just going to kind of try and go through Donovan Mitchell's chest to start. They get a block. Doesn't matter. Again, early offense. You're trying to go as fast as you can against this Cavs team, especially in game 3. This one, I love this little ghost action involving Darius Garland, right? This is just going to be really hard to guard across the board. Actually is a little bit more than a ghost. Like he even gets this screen. So your best case scenario here is what happens, right? They put 2 on the ball. There's like a little miscommunication in terms of what they're trying to do. I'm not totally sure if their goal here was we just want the ball out of Franz's hands, right? Or if their goal here is, no, we actually want to put 2 on the ball, or if the goal is, we want to switch this with Garland going out and, or we want to switch this with Garland guarding Franz and Okoro staying attached to Cole and Okoro just kind of like freelances, or if, we're trying to go like under and, recover, right? But Okoro stays too long and it just ends up being a wide open 3. But your worst case scenario in this circumstance with the way that they played this and with the way that Anthony gets contact here is, now you have the mismatch.
Yeah. Franz
on Garland.
Yeah.
Which is what you want. So this is just really, really smart. This is very simple. I mean, it's not complicated, right? You're just running like a, what would we call that? Like a 3-1 screen in at the end of a half.
Yep.
Up near, 30 feet away from the basket. Next one. I pulled this one just because you're attacking Garland at the end of the day again, right? Just going to try and attack Darius Garland in these ball screen actions. Just seems to get totally swallowed up there by the Wagner screen. Makes it so that this is like a serious help from Evan Mobley. Obviously as well, like Karis LeVert just can't lose this man in the corner. Like just absolutely can't. This is insane to me. I think that there is a chance that this might have been a zone possession off of an inbounds pass, right?
My initial thought was they're in zone here.
Yeah, I believe that this is a zone possession. But like, what is Karis LeVert doing there?
It's like he forgot the inbounder was even there.
Yeah, I just have no idea what's happening. I will also you're going to see a lot of Markelle Fultz, not a lot of it, but like a decent amount of him. Fultz has been much better. He's been in double figures in both of these game 3 and game 4. We talked a lot about the bench guards, particularly for Orlando being a problem in games 1 and 2. He was much better in games 3 and 4, and it really gave them a boost off the bench. This one, again, intentional about attacking mismatches, right? This ends up being a good scramble to be able to end up with Paulo being guarded by Jared Allen. But look at this little action here where you get this screen, you get the seal from Paulo onto Donovan Mitchell. You force help. Wendell Carter is asking for a lob here, coming baseline.
It's probably there because Strus
probably there.
Yeah.
You've got Wagner kind of coming down, drifting toward the corner. I will give Donovan Mitchell credit here. He does a good job kind of cutting off that pass where Paulo is immediately looking to try and get that kick out when he's in the middle of the court. And then he recovers back out. It's a tough shot. It's like a really, really tough shot. But I think it again goes to show the intentionality with which they're trying to create these mismatches, right? They're trying to attack these guards better in game 3 and game 4 than they did in 1 and 2. Again, just pushing tempo, get it out, 3 on the wing. This one, again, mismatch. Now you've got Donovan Mitchell on an island against Paulo. Does a good job, but that's just a really, really difficult ask for Donovan Mitchell to be able to get like a reasonable contest on a guy who's 6'11", right? Like that. ridiculous body control from Paulo. Paulo was unbelievable in game 3. And the other thing with Paulo is he missed like probably 5 of his first 7 shots in game 3 and then just like went nuclear. But that's a clean look for Paulo, right? Like no hand in his face. He's got to look at the rim. You get the late contest. I get it. But when he gets that kind of look at the rim early, I think it's just going to be really, really tough.
His feet were ridiculous on that shot. Like that was just
unbelievable. Unbelievable. This one is really fun. This is going to be, I posted this on Twitter. This is the Spain action to try and get the cross match again. They actually ran this, I believe, on that possession with Franz here. So this is the corner wing. The previous possession, I believe, was like a Spain. Oh, no, it wasn't. It was just a screen to get Paulo onto him. But this one, they run this like awesome Spain action to try and create this mismatch and switch. Jalen tries to get the screen there onto Mobley, hoping that it forces Mitchell to guard Paulo. It doesn't. Mobley kind of recovers back. I think Max Strus deserves some credit here as well. He does a really good job angling his body into like making it so that as Franz is like potentially trying to throw this entry pass to Paulo, he's there and ready, right? That's going to be a difficult entry pass. That's just like prep at the end of the day, right? But they just set it directly into a Horns flare, right? So what a Horns flare is going to be is these two start on the elbow, then they step up and create a little bit of confusion. Suggs comes up, sets a screen for Franz to go around, and then the flare piece of it comes with Paulo screening Suggs's man, which after the switch is going to be Strus. So it just puts a lot of pressure on Strus to have to try and communicate through this. There's the flare, and you get this matchup onto Mobley, and that's a pretty open shot. Like, I get that it's a late contest and that it's like a tough, shot over the top of 7 foot, but that's a lot of separation.
Yeah.
Right? Pretty clean look. And then this next one down, again, we're attacking early in transition if you're Orlando, right? Get the ball down the court. Force this early switch again. Being intentional about trying to get these cross matches, right? You get what you want with Donovan Mitchell here, but then you just have Jalen Suggs in oceans of space against Evan Mobley. And he's just going to blow by.
Wow. Like
just a straight blow by of Evan Mobley, who is a defensive, player of the year candidate last year. And, may have been an all defense guy had he been eligible this year with the games played rule. Again, this one eventually going to be a turnover and we're just pushing, right? And again, this is what Suggs did so well all year. Created early offense, pushed. And, this is a 26-point game now. This next one, just attacking, right? This is a zone possession from Cleveland. That's why I put this in. They come out in this like weird, I don't know. What do you want to call this zone, Bryce?
I would call this a 2-1-2, a flat 3-2, something.
It's it's almost like I almost called it like a 1-2-2 was my thought. And then you get this, and then you've got like it's almost like a box defense.
Sure.
We're just trying to like stop guys from like being able to get paint touches. And I just love the way that they go about attacking this, right? Like you get this swing to the wing, you force this closeout. Suggs is capable of getting it that middle paint touch and then the kick out for a 3. Please don't run that zone again, Cleveland. I'm intrigued by zoning Orlando, just not that zone. Next one. This is from the game on Saturday. Again, now we're just getting Franz into these weird, drives. And I put Franz drives on here. This is just
beautiful.
So filthy. Just so
Wendell
filthy.
Carter Jr. with the highway screen also is amazing stuff.
Yep. Just does a great job on the Gortat right here.
Yeah, that's so nice.
Look at that. Look at that from Wendell Carter. That's beautiful. That's what we're talking about.
Give him a screen assist.
Give him a screen assist. I don't know if they would on that, but that is just sick.
Well, they should. I want to petition the NBA official stats.
That is absolutely sick from Wendell Carter. This one, another Wendell drive or another Franz drive, right?
Look at him.
Franz. Look at this man. This man is learning from Mo Wagner on how to be a troll. Just points at him. I think he's mad because he tried to flop, right?
Yeah, like, I don't know. I rewound it like 3 times to try to figure it all out, but yeah.
Yeah, so I think he thinks that he's flopping here, like because it's George Niang, and I love George Niang, but he'll do this stuff from time to time.
Sure. I'm telling you, Franz and Jalen Suggs interaction with Darius Garland at half court were like, these dudes do not care. Like Paulo's
the same way. Like Paulo, from what I've been told, mild mannered, like, doesn't look like stuff bothers him, but like real competitive on stuff like this too. Again, we're just running early here, right? Franz does a great job getting out in transition, trying to create that early offense. This one, again, we're going to get like, this is what makes them so sick, right? This is like a 3-4 screen action where, you've got 6'9" and 6'10" running it. Seems difficult. The reason I put this on here though, is this next screen, right? So you've got a 4-1 screen now. They just can invert so many actions.
Yes.
What makes it gross.
It's really cool with their personnel.
Yeah. And then you force that recovery from Evan Mobley, right? So you set this screen, you decide that you don't want to switch it, which I think is the right call for what it's worth. Like, I don't think you want Mitchell on Paulo if you can stop it. But then because Paulo is so sick and because there's 3.5 seconds left on the shot clock, Mobley like sells out for it. And this is what Paulo, I think, does really well. He does those like little pump fake pass and cut moves. Sure. He's so smart at those. I think he just creates so many little opportunities for himself by doing that. Next one here. Again, we're just running like 3-4 inverted screen into a 3-1 screen to try and get the switch. Goal, again, very clear. We're attacking Donovan Mitchell this possession, right? We're attacking Donovan Mitchell. We're trying to make it so that he has to be the one involved switching onto a mismatch onto Franz. This one, they decide to essentially go under. Do they go under this, or does Max go over?
I think they might just switch it.
No, they just switch it. You're right. So they're switching based on this. It looks like in the second half, they're switching 1-3 and then probably trying to play over the top on the 4 and the 5 screens, right? Or at the very least, they're trying to avoid the Paulo mismatch.
Yeah.
With some of these guards. The problem is that Franz absolutely got cooking, right? Like, look at the score. I believe 65-57 before that 3. Again, now we're just attacking. We get this little mismatch here with Donovan Mitchell. Yep. That's easy.
I like how early they're doing it in all of these, right? Like you showed the transition clips, but now this is early offense. We're not waiting till 14 seconds on the shot clock. We're getting the switch at 21 on the shot clock.
Getting the switch here at 21 on the shot clock. Early screen. Jalen Suggs. Again, we're just inverting actions. 4-1 action, right? This is really hard to guard, especially when you get Paulo downhill in transition. I love setting these screens 35, 38 feet from the rim, right? And now you've just got this little miscommunication.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that those things create, right? Forget the, whether you're going to, if you switch it, it's a mismatch and that's a win for Orlando. But then it just creates these little moments where it's like, oh shit, what are we doing? Right? Like Mobley and Mitchell have to decide, wait, like what's happening here? What are we trying to accomplish on this possession? Are we trapping? Are we switching? What's our goal? and it leaves Jalen Suggs wide open for three, right? That's an open 3-point look with a late contest, but that's like coming from the side, and I don't think that's really going to bother Suggs. This one, attacking George Niang there with that early screen. Let's just go here again. Paulo. Also, like worst case scenario here is mismatch onto Karis LeVert. That's a win for them. I think Niang has actually done like an okay job on Paulo, just like bodying him up and being more physical in this series. But they're just being intentional about how they attack. They're trying to get these as many cross matches and mismatches as they can with these starters. This one's just like an early transition play. Again, Fultz, you've got the flex from Mo Wagner. Love it. And this is just really hard to guard, right? Look at Wagner go.
Yep.
So what this action is, if I remember correctly, and by the way, people will say Franz is like the mild-mannered, like normal one. Look at Franz in the corner here. Just absolutely losing his mind right now. I love it. So this one is essentially like a zoom.
Yep.
For Franz coming up, where you have Cole Anthony kind of like set this screen here for Franz coming up from the corner. Franz going to take the dribble handoff from his brother, acting as a second screener. Then he kind of goes behind it and they rescreen with Mo. That's a really tough thing to guard if you're Karis LeVert there. And it essentially acts then as like an empty side ball screen, right? You have to defend it with like Max Strus coming over early from the corner to tag Wagner coming in. You basically have to play 2 on the ball there to be able to get it back. The Cavs do a really good job of kind of staying attached and everything, but I think LeVert's been really bad defensively in this series. He's just gotten attacked and gotten shoved around by some of these bigger dudes for Orlando, and it's become kind of a problem for Cleveland. This one, you know, what do we talk about with Denver all the time?
Yeah.
Just those dribble handoffs into rescreens, right? I mean, that's just a nasty inside hand finish, right? So dribble handoff into rescreen. And again, like the thing I want to point out with Jared Allen here is Mo Wagner, I think, ended up with double figures in this game. Look at how Jared's body is pointed, right? He's pointed this way, which kind of opens up this driving lane here. I think that they're probably kind of hoping that Max is a little bit more available there. But then again, it's Jared Allen. Like, you're hoping that he's going to be available. But the reason that Jared is pointed this way is because he's trying to dissuade that little pass there in the pocket too.
Yeah, he gets he opens up a little more than what you would want. That's a tough finish.
It's a really tough finish, man. It's a great finish from Franz. I think this might be the last one as well. This I think sets up as a zoom
and then he
into just like a floater. Yeah.
I mean, so you play the scout against him, right? Like we talked about, go under, reuse. So he comes off zoom.
Yep. There's your zoom again. Coming around. Chicago, whatever you want to call it. Different names for different sets, right? And then zoom into rescreen again, like we saw this last time. It's just that Cole this time didn't vacate, right? So last time, Cole kind of vacated the side and went over that way. This time, Cole stays in the corner. He's over there somewhere. And then when Mo goes to rescreen, Wagner decides, nope, I'm just going to reject that rescreen and go because it's not an empty side. I think they've just been so sharp about how they attack Cleveland in these last 2 games. I think that everything that they're doing is kind of exactly what I would hope they would do. And I have no complaints about what I've seen from Orlando these last 2 games offensively.
And I will say, watching that and diving deeper into it, I think Cleveland has some communication stuff they have to clean up. That Garland Mobley transition one where Suggs ended up getting the 3 from the top of the key really stands out. Which ones are we switching? Which ones we're not? When do we switch? Who's calling it out? And when you put guys that aren't always super comfortable, Donovan and Darius into those, maybe they're not as good communicating those type of things. So, if they're switching 1 through 3, but getting over the top on 4, like that stuff requires a lot of really good communication. And it looked like Cleveland didn't quite have all of that ironed out in that game, or those 2 games. I guess that was from 2 games.
Yep. I think that's dead on. Okay. Do you want to zoom through maybe some of these other series real quick?
Let's touch on them real quick. Yeah.
Nothing crazy. Lakers, Denver is now 3-1 headed back to Denver. Do you have any thoughts on game 4 from the Lakers perspective?
No, I mean, I guess it was good to see them get one and kind of fight back and not go out with the sweep. I think the Nuggets really wanted to sweep the Lakers just with kind of I don't know if rivalry is even the right word, to use there, but I'm sure the Nuggets wanted to finish them off in LA with a 4-game sweep. I anticipate the Nuggets get game 5, but if LeBron has another one in him, AD's played really well during lots of stretches of games. I know there's been some fourth quarter stuff. Listeners know I'm a big Austin Reeves. If D'Lo can make shots, I don't know, maybe LA makes this interesting. I'm not counting on it, but if they go win one in Denver, I think all of a sudden you have to be like, oh, this may be kind of interesting.
Look, I mean, the Lakers have had double-figure leads in every one of these games.
That's fair. That's true.
They have been more competitive than what a 3-0 lead would indicate. Like there's a 3-0 lead in New Orleans, where, as Charles Barkley said, we got to send those dudes to Galveston because there's no way that they should be going to Cancun. But man, the Lakers have been a lot more competitive than what honestly I expected. I think the Lakers are a really good team, and they're like not far off of being like a real contender. I would run this back next year with just like some slight adjustments on the margins, like go and find role players that make sense. Like I'm already kind of eyeing off what we're going to talk about within the Lakers, like off-season preview a little bit. But yeah, like I think Denver probably gets this series. Jokic was unbelievable again in game 4, by the way. He had like 33, 14, and 14. It was just totally ridiculous. It's just that, Jamal Murray didn't shoot super well, and they got like literally 0 from the bench in that game.
I was going to say, like, we've casually brought this up all year long. And I know Christian Brown, Kansas kid, always support, was really good last year. Peyton Watson was really good all season. Like, I still wonder is what I'll say. I'm not crazy concerned, but I still wonder. Also, complete side note, Nikola Jokic's Despicable Me commercials are cracking me up. Like, I love those things so
They're
much.
The best.
They're amazing.
Truly the best.
They're awesome.
So good. So good. Yeah, and like, look, I thought that AD played super well in game 4.
Yes.
D'Angelo Russell made shots. I thought Reeves was really good in game 4. Chased around Jamal Murray really well.
I feel like he's done. I feel like Austin has played pretty well defensively. Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
The numbers.
No, he's played truly, like Austin Reeves has been really good defensively against Jamal Murray. It's just like, it's hard.
Yeah, it's really
Jamal
hard.
Murray's really good.
Really good. And like that 2-man game is, it doesn't matter how good you are, they find a way to exploit it. But I feel like he's given great effort and done a really good job defensively on Jamal Murray.
Totally agree. Really, like the Lakers they absolutely need a non-stinker from D'Angelo Russell every game. It feels like they don't have enough firepower otherwise. And I don't trust that to happen for 4 straight games. So I'm anticipating Denver wins, honestly, probably game 5, because it's very hard to win in Denver. Denver is always been and always will be one of the best home court teams in the league, because, it's hard to go play in thin air, and they go 33-8 this year, which is second best record at home in the NBA this season. Seems likely that they probably get it.
Yep.
Boston and Miami. I thought Boston just like kind of cleaned up a lot of the messy like 3-point defense that they had in game 2. They're up 2-1. Game 3 will be tomorrow night.
Game 4.
Yeah, I think Game 4, I'm sorry. Up 2-1 game 4 tomorrow night. I think they just cleaned up a lot of the messy 3-point coverages and just made it, much harder for Miami to score and kind of, shut off their water.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was wondering if I didn't want to overreact to game 2, and we broke it all down really well. We talked about it, but at the end of the day, I still kind of walked out of that game going, Boston's still very much the better team. And seems like if they can just look at these things, improve upon them, which we have every inclination that they would, that they'll get this thing figured out. And so I wondered if we wouldn't see a really good performance from them. Like, they just can't play with their food. Like, I want to see them be as dominant as what we talked about them being all regular season. Go win another game in Miami, go home, win it in 5, and we'll all forget about it. I don't want to see them revert back again and just kind of go through this roller coaster thing through round 1.
Yeah, we'll talk about that on Tuesday night into Wednesday if we have to. I'm anticipating that Boston again, we've talked about this. They just have so much more firepower at the end of the day, which is going to make it really, really hard. Oklahoma City and New Orleans. I mean, that is just a series that New Orleans just has no creation at the end of the day. That's what it comes down to. There's just not nearly enough offensive creation. We talked about that when we broke down the first 2 games in detail. And if you want to go watch some of those breakdowns, you can go back and watch the ones we did after game 1 and 2. They just can't get anywhere or get any penetration offensively against Lou Dort, Jalen Williams,
Case and Wallace.
I'll say this. I think Josh Giddey has been pretty good defensively in this series and has made life a little bit harder for some of these guys. Giddey played really well in game 3, had 21, 8, and 6. Shea continues to do his thing. I think Jalen Williams right now is in his first playoff series, 20 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists or something per game on 59 true shooting or 60 true shooting or something. He's been awesome.
7 rebounds, 5.5 assists, almost 2 steals on 53, 42, 67. He hasn't got to the free throw line. I had a Thunder fan who's in the media. He's more than a fan. He covers the team, but he is a fan. Text me. He just goes, Jalen Williams ? Or ? And I just text back, is really effing good. That's what Jalen Williams is. And this team is a ton of fun. Listen, with all due respect to the Pelicans, who, they're shorthanded at the end of the day. And they've given them, they've made their lives miserable. I'm excited to see this Thunder team in the second round against whether it's the Mavs or the Clippers, and see if this continues against a team that's a little more healthy and a little more ready for this.
Last series is the one that's actually happening right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know how deep I want to go on it because it's a super tight game. I'm actually really excited to go back and watch. It looks like a glorious Karl Towns and Anthony Edwards show versus Durant and Booker show.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah. 42 for Booker, 31 for KD against.
Yeah, I just pulled up the box score.
Yeah, 26 and 28 for Towns. It's 102-99. Minnesota's winning right now as we speak. Couldn't be more excited to, dive into this one. Look, I think that I find it hard to believe that Phoenix is going to be able to come back from down 3-0. Even if they get this game, it'd be nice if they do get this game. I think this has been a fun, intense series, even if, it's been lopsided to this point, especially in games 1 and 3. But yeah, I'm excited to dig into this and see if the Matt Ishbia Suns era is going to, start off in earnest with a full scale sweep.
I mean, some of these offseason previews we've done have been a lot of fun, but I'm realizing Lakers, Suns, some of the Pelicans even are going to be a lot of fun because there's some big questions around some big name players when we get to those teams.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into those. Hopefully on Tuesday, we will have time to be able to get into more off-season previews. Just kind of looking at the schedule and the way that it lays out the next couple of days. Tuesday does have 4 games. How many of them we get to remains to be seen, I would say, on the Tuesday night show. But tomorrow is Miami, Boston, and Oklahoma City, New Orleans. Those series just like could be totally over at that point. And then LA, Denver could also be totally over. So, we might get 2 series ending and then Boston being up 3-1 and it basically being like totally curtains in that respect for Miami. And then Tuesday we get 3 more series that are 3-game series. I will just say this on this playoffs. A lot of these series, it feels like to me, are non-competitive in terms of like series score. Like, is Cleveland the only one that's 2-2 right now? Cleveland, Orlando? No, LA, Dallas is as well.
Yeah.
So 2 of the 8 right now are 2-2. The rest of them are either 3-0, 3-1, 2-1 in Boston's case. I do feel like the playoffs have still been fun, even though we haven't gotten like a crazy fun, competitive wild series outside of that Dallas LA series. But even that feels like a bummer because of the injuries. So it's been a funky playoffs, but I have had fun with it still.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much to keep track of. I'll be honest, there's a little bit of me that's ready for this first round to be over because 8 series is just a lot to keep track of. So when we get down to just 4 series, 2 on each side, I feel like I can dive in and watch not every second of every game, but as much as possible where I feel like I'm up to date on everything. I some nights I just got to pick and choose, man. I'm just like, I'm going to watch this one live. 100%. I'm going to watch that one tomorrow, but I can't get this next one in before I record with Sam. And you just got to prioritize things in some ways. So hopefully those next rounds will be super competitive and intense the way we've seen a lot of these games as well.
No, and look, like I'm doing all of this in the middle of writing draft guide. I'm up to like 75,000 words now. So I'm like ready to have 4 series at the end of the day. Yeah. Like give me two games a night. That'd be a dream. Where I don't have to watch like, 8 games over the last 2 days to try and catch up. But no, I've enjoyed the first round so far, even though it's been a little bit, I don't want to say non-competitive, but maybe slightly competitive is probably the way to put it.
Yeah.
Okay, Bryce, do you have anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
No, I think that's good. I think we caught up on everything. I know we had somebody tweet about, us covering the Cavs and Magic series. I feel like we've tried to pick and choose and give everybody some love and bounce around between the teams. And so I feel like we do a pretty good job of that over here. So
I think we've done tape on literally every series so far.
Okay.
In some respect. I think we've broken down tape on every single series now. Cleveland, Orlando, we didn't do a ton early on because, those first 2 games were kind of rough. But yeah, like I feel like we've gotten to all of them, and that's exciting. And, I'm excited to kind of dive into off-season previews for some of these teams, and we still have 2 more that we have to do with Sacramento and Atlanta as well.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm excited to dive into those. But we'll be back on Tuesday night, right, Bryce?
We will. Are we going to be back tomorrow on my podcast?
We will be back tomorrow on your podcast too. I will be awake at 8:00 in the morning and ready to go.
We pushed it back a little bit so you didn't have to get up too early. But yes, if you want some more Sam Vecenie talking straight Detroit Pistons basketball, you can join the Pistons Pulse on Monday afternoon, evening.
Yeah, I don't know how interested I am in Detroit Pistons basketball, but it's funny. I wrote that thing with James.
Yeah.
And I texted, I'll read the message I sent James.
James Edwards III, the Athletic Pistons beat writer, James is amazing. He's been really good to me and help. James is one of those guys he helped me early on more than he'll ever let me give him credit for. So I'll do it now. He was huge for my trajectory through this thing.
Yeah, James is the best. But
he's awesome.
I sent him the exceptionally depressing things that you have asked me to write about are done. That's literally what I texted him. I was like, this is just sad.
people try to blame me like I force it upon you. I'm like, it's not my fault. Like I have never once asked Sam to talk Pistons on the pod. I've never once text Sam and be like, hey, you should turn on this Pistons game. It is not me. You subjected yourself to this throughout the season.
I did.
This is on you. I'm going to let you take the fall for this one.
What I'll say is this. I think that you probably subjected me to it early. And like I got into it early because of you.
Yeah.
And then I like got hooked on watching the car crash that was unfolding in front of my eyes.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stop.
Yep.
So I can blame you a little bit, but mostly I have to blame myself and my inability to look at the oncoming train wreck.
Yeah. No, it was a lot. I'm excited to talk to you about it.
All right, Bryce, tell the people where else they can find you.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, NBA draft, obviously Pistons stuff. The Pistons Pulse, again, truly it'll be a fun episode. My co-host Amari Sankofa II, beat writer for the Detroit Free Press. We'll have a blast just talking with Sam tomorrow, hanging out, talking hoops. And I've been putting out some NBA draft scouting reports and stuff like that over on Substack, so you can check that stuff out as well. But otherwise, here on Game Theory podcast with Sam Vecenie.
We'll be back on Tuesday. This is a big, like I said, kind of draft guide week for me. I did 5 or 6 profiles over the weekend, and my goal over the next 2 days to get through, maybe 5 or 6 more. Get to write Tristan da Silva tonight. Couldn't be more excited about that. I am a big Tristan guy.
Yep.
Then I have to do, I owe an NBA person, Nick Clifford, thoughts as well.
Okay.
So nice. I have to watch a little bit of him and try and figure out just what I think of the jumper, because I feel like that's the swing skill for Nick at the end of the day.
For sure.
Probably a top 60 guy though on my board. It's funny. I have like right now, and this is now a total aside, I have like a practical draft board and like a top 100 board, which includes like everybody that I think has declared point blank. And then my practical draft board is like, guys that I think will actually be in the draft based on what I know. And Bryce, it gets dire by like 80.
Yep.
In this thing.
I don't.
It gets rough.
I had 100 all year, and then as guys didn't. I think I only take mine out to 85 right now because I just
yeah. Like I right now have like 85 or so names like on the practical board.
Yep.
That is there. So I am very much looking forward to learning all of this stuff and figuring out where it all lands. But that's podcast for a later date. Maybe we could do a draft podcast next Sunday if there is some eliminations.
Okay.
That'd be nice. I would like some teams to get eliminated maybe, and we can dive into the draft. But we'll kind of keep you guys in the loop on that. We still have playoffs to get through here. Other than that, until next time, we'll talk soon.